What's going on, everybody? 2021 is shaping up to be an exciting year for VR and AR users. We've got lots of new headsets coming up in the near future, as well as some new trackers and some brand new games for us to get our hands on. What I wanted to talk about today were things that can improve VR in the future for current users and anybody who may still be on the fence about getting involved in it. Now, these are ideas that have come from both myself as well as many members in the community that I've had the pleasure of speaking with, and I wanted to discuss these ideas right here today, so let's get right into it. One quick note before we get started is today's background track is Sunshine featuring P-Sus by Panther. Link in the description for his Spotify. Getting right into it, number one is going to be more third-party support by major studios. Now, this is something that has not been completely absent on VR. For example, we've had Bethesda drop both Skyrim VR as well as Fallout 4 VR already, and we've even seen IO Interactive drop Hitman, although that particular game is VR only for the PlayStation 4 version, even if it is playable on the PlayStation 5. What I mean to say is we definitely need to see more of this from other developers. There are some rumors that Ubisoft's got some of their more popular franchises in the works for VR, for example, games such as Splinter Cell as well as some other Tom Clancy franchises. Granted, these are all rumors at the moment, but it would definitely be very exciting to be able to play some of these games with our friends in VR. What I mean to say is completely new games from these developers, completely dedicated and built around the idea of experiencing them in VR. The more major studios that hop on the VR bandwagon will give players more experiences that they can have and include more genres that may not be available at the moment. Of course, we do have Nintendo, who is still trying to do their own thing that is not quite VR. It's more leaning into AR, and even their motion-controlled VR and AR games are still quite different from its competitor in Sony with the PlayStation VR or especially PC VR. But it's good to see some of these major developers definitely trying to hop on something that has a lot of potential. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the number of indie developers that are trying to push into VR and establish themselves in that space, but it would be great to get some AAA experiences a la Half-Life Alyx in VR. While the experiences on VR have continued to grow and they're definitely a lot of fun, many of the older and more popular titles tend to be more tech demos or really more proof of concept. And people in the community have told me they feel it'd be really great if they can get some of those really memorable experiences that they had since their childhood in their virtual reality headset. Moving right along into number two, I think it would be great to get some legacy content. Now, when we say legacy content, we typically mean with a franchise or a particular studio or developer's backlog of games in their history, but VR doesn't have that quite long of a history. So what I mean to say is games that were released in the past available on other media and platforms and bringing them over to VR. Now, if you're thinking this sounds like a crazy idea, it's already been done and it's already available right now in VR. For example, Skyrim has been released on just about everything and it's already a VR title. And there are even mod support for games that were done in the past where you can officially patch them into be workable and usable in VR. Well, what are some examples, you might ask? Well, I would say that one of my personal favorites would have been bringing Jedi Knight over. And this was the one I was referring to when I said that there's a mod available for Jedi Knight 2 and 3. And if you want to go back even further, Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2 was at one point available in VR. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to find any footage for this, and I can't really seem to find what company or how this was even done way back in the late 90s and early 2000s. But I do distinctly remember here in my hometown of Las Vegas going to the Adventure Dome, or as it was called back then, Grand Slam Canyon, and seeing people play Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2 with both VR headsets as well as treadmills. I never got the chance to experience this as I was much smaller back then and I couldn't quite fit into the equipment that they had, as VR was a bit more archaic than it is now, but I think it would be a lot of fun. Now, you can still have pretty similar experiences to what I would just describe to you nowadays, and obviously the Quest's Vader Immortal series, as well as for Blade and Sorcery with the mod, The Outer Rim, as I've experienced both of these, and it's a lot of fun if you're trying to get on that Star Wars lightsaber action. Another game I think would benefit a lot from a VR-like experience would be the Legend of Zelda series. Now, we've kind of seen something like this with Skyward Sword and its motion controls, and I know that wasn't exactly a favorite of some people, but if it had the tracking that's available in VR, it would do a lot better. There's obviously a lot that would need to be done in order to make this work, as it's a completely different kind of game, but you get what I'm saying is that one of that game's biggest downsides was its tracking, as many people complained about. But if you had that more advanced technology sitting behind it, I think it could be a lot of fun. Let's move on to another one that was brought up to me by several members in the community, and that's going to be strategy games such as The Sims or SimCity. Now, you may be wondering how a game like this might even work. What we can say is obviously this is going to be typically an isometric view, and the thing that would lend well to working in VR is if instead of making it a typical strategy game where you just click around the screen to make the game function, if you did it almost like a board game as you would in real life. Imagine being able to build your house and control your Sims moving them around, like picking them up or playing with a dollhouse, or laying out your city in a game like SimCity as some kind of giant titan planning everything out. Then, of course, there's always the option to go into more cooperative focused games, something like Left 4 Dead, as shooters already seem to work very well, as there are plenty of zombie shooters already available, but nothing quite like a title like Left 4 Dead. Being able to have that randomized and extremely cooperative experience, at least for the campaign mode, would be a lot of fun, I think, for VR users, and would definitely make an already terrifying game even scarier. Lastly, I think a kind of game that would work very well in VR would be something like the Mass Effect trilogy or even the Witcher series. These games do have shooter mechanics, and we've already discussed how that's possible, but it would be very interesting to have those immersive and wonderful conversations doing it from the first person. Many fans over the years have grown very attached to these characters and these storylines as they've continued to play the franchise over and over again, but being able to experience it from the first person, flying all around the galaxy, being Commander Shepard, and going through his great adventure to stop the Reapers, once again, but witnessing everything with your own eyes and talking to everybody on the ground level on the ships and on the planets that you visit would definitely bring some freshness to an already amazing series. The third and final thing I wanted to talk about was just more genres in general. First, let's talk about what's already been done. VR lends itself well to many physics-based games, such as things that are available in Half-Life Alyx, Boneworks, and many other titles, heavily depend on these physics in order to make the game feel more real. There's certainly no shortage of shooters or melee-focused games in VR. But let's talk about what hasn't been done yet or what could be done. The first one I would talk about are strategy games. There are many people who enjoy Dungeons and Dragons-like experiences as well as more calmer role-playing games. And board games have always essentially been strategy games at heart. Many current players get motion sick when playing these games, and that wouldn't necessarily happen if they were more in a seated position playing strategy games. Obviously, any turn-based franchises would lend themselves well in VR in this sort of scenario. And playing something like Civilization as some sort of grand deity could be a lot of fun. Now, is any of this absolutely necessary? Certainly not, but it would definitely give VR users more use out of their headsets and give many games a great new way to experience them. The next genre I'd like to talk on is survival. Now, we do have a couple of games on there, such as No Man's Sky, The Forest, among several others. And although survival games are starting to get kind of tired on other platforms such as PC and consoles, I do think that experiencing them in VR would definitely breathe new life into somewhat of a getting tired genre. Survival games are designed to actually make you feel like you're on the ground trying to survive to the best of your ability by eating, drinking, building, and doing whatever is necessary to keep yourself going on to the next day. And it's fair to say for some that these experiences feel like every game is pretty similar to the last one. The way to try to mix this up is to make people feel like they're actually there doing these things, building their homes by hand, mining, moving things. And if you get some of the more intense experiences such as survival and bringing combat into it, it's only going to make things just a little bit more interesting. I, for one, personally feel that that's the natural next step for survival games, but we'll have to see if any developers out there feel the same way. The final genre I think would lend itself well, and although we kind of touched on one game that would do it, would be specifically asymmetrical multiplayer experiences. Obviously, Left 4 Dead is a great example of this, but I think experiences like the game that I personally enjoyed, which was Evolved, would lend themselves well to VR. Chasing the monster with your friends, hopping around, flying, shooting at it while trying to take down this constantly evolving beast would be a lot of fun. And I don't necessarily just mean that game particularly, but lots of games where it's obviously one versus many. These games have always tended to be skill-based, whether it's your ability to cooperate and talk to your teammates or your ability to outwit several other people trying to get you. Doing these kinds of experiences in VR would only emphasize that skill further and be a lot of fun for the more competitive types. A title you may have missed that's already tried to do this was a game called Panoptic. There's a giant overseer that is trying to catch everyone, essentially playing a big game of hide and seek. I think more games like this would definitely lend themselves well to VR experiences and only increase the number of genres available to those of us that have headsets, or those of you that may be looking to get one. Well, guys, that's my short list for today, but I'd like to keep the discussion going. If there's anything that you have, or maybe I inspired you to think about, or something that you've had on your own that you've been looking to suggest, please put it down in the comments below. What do you think would work well in VR? Are there any legacy games you'd like to see? Any of your favorite studios you'd like to see start putting their franchises available as a VR option? Or are there any genres you think that would actually lend themselves well to VR experiences? Leave me a comment down below and let's keep talking about it. As always, it's a real pleasure to see you guys spending your valuable time with me and having these fun discussions. I enjoy making these videos for you guys, and I've certainly got more in the works coming in the near future. Thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll see you next time on It's Vinny Vegas. Later, guys.